Good evening, everybody. Monday Morning Quarterback, episode 180. Tonight we're going to talk about 5 things that every crew chief should have to have a successful night at the racetrack. Before we dive into tonight's topic, a couple questions that have been asked on the previous week's video. First one that came in is a common question that we get here, and that is, does it matter which orientation I mount my shocks, so body up or shaft up? No, I mean, it slightly changes the unsprung weight, not enough to move the needle in either direction. I always recommend for folks to mount their shocks where they can get to the adjusters the easiest. That's how I put them on any race car I work on. I don't want to be laying in the dirt to adjust a shock, so I usually go shaft up so I can get to the adjuster easier. If you are running shock adjuster cables, then you want to mount them in a fashion to where you can route the cable the nicest. So, but as far as performance, it doesn't really matter if it's a non-adjustable shock or you don't really care where the adjuster is at. The second one, I believe we're going to have to do like a 2-part video segment on this, which was a good one, and it was the process of scaling a dirt car, how we go about that, checking corner heights versus cross weight, when we would adjust which. So we'll do a 2-part video on that. I think that's a great one, and we can film that at the shop. But another question that came in regarding that was, with the new rule change in high limit and some of the local tracks where they're allowed just one singular shock adjuster for these wing sprint cars, what corner should they run it on? And I really think that's going to depend on how you run your race car and what the driver feels, but my guess is that 90% of the field is either going to have a left rear rebound adjuster or a right rear rebound adjuster. Personally, I would lean towards the right rear rebound adjuster, but that's just kind of how we've been running things. So yeah, that's another great question. So keep the questions coming. That keeps this deal going. I always say like and subscribe. That just helps us get this out to more people, and it also will help you see the content you want to see. Facebook and YouTube, they track that stuff, and if you're liking this type of content, they'll show you more of it, whether it's from us or anybody else. So 5 things every crew chief should have. The first one, I feel, is on your phone. You should have a couple of apps that will help you track things throughout the night. My Race Pass or Race Monitor, I use those frequently. I want to know how the track is changing speed-wise throughout the night. If where you're racing has live timing, the majority of them do on either one of those 2 platforms. That is very helpful to know that, hey, we hot lapped, it was a 14.0, the B main was a 15.5, they're not working the track, okay, this thing slowed down a bunch, do we need to make a gear change? And how's that going to affect my decisions for the setup, because the track has slowed down substantially. So one of those 2 apps to help you monitor that also keeps you from wondering where you're starting. It's kind of on my Race Pass, they post the lineups super quickly and keeps you from having to walk back and forth to the lineup board. So if you don't have those apps, they're, I don't know, a couple bucks a month. They're pretty affordable. Definitely worth having. I'm also a big advocate for Pit Logic, not just because we're involved with it, but helps me have my notes with me at all times. So really big on detailed notes, whether you're handwriting it in a notebook or you're keeping it in Pit Logic. You need to have detailed notes. But while we were talking about apps, I wanted to mention that. Number 2, high quality air gauge. Okay, Intercomp and the Joes are my 2 favorite. I have both. Our trailer's up getting worked on, so the Joes was in the trailer, this was in the shop. But yeah, a high quality air gauge. If you buy a cheap $20–$30 air gauge, that's what you're going to get is cheap data from it, and inconsistent data and probably not super accurate data. So buy a high quality air gauge. take care of it. Send it back to get calibrated every few years. And air pressure is such a critical part of what we do setting up race cars. An air gauge that is of the utmost quality is very, very important. We're pretty much all on the same tire every night. While we're talking about tires, my two favorite tire tools would be a high quality grooving iron. If you're dirt racing, you've got to have a high-end grooving iron. Makes your life so much easier. And you might say, well, the crew chief doesn't do tires. Well, but the crew chief is responsible for the guy that does tires, and if you give him a crappy tool, you're probably going to get a crappy job done. So a high quality grooving iron, if you're an asphalt racer, you've got to have a tire tighten. Makes cleaning the tires so much easier, whether quarter midgets to asphalt late models. Tire tighten is a tire guy's best friend. So if you're the crew chief, even if you're not doing the tires, make sure the guy doing that job has the proper tools. Okay, number 3, flush cuts. This is the most important one for me. If you're building race cars with just a regular pair of side cuts, somebody should take the wrenches away from you, right? So I'm going to do a little demonstration here. So if you do a tie wrap and you cut it with this thing, it has that sharp point on it that is like as sharp as a razor blade, and you'll send somebody to the hospital. Plus it looks like crap. I got these off Amazon because inevitably, you know, I have a snap-on pair. Somebody's going to try to cut a pair of piece of safety wire with it, ruin your flush cuts and make you mad. These are like $9.99 on Amazon. You do it, it's flush. It's not going to cut you. Flush cuts. If you're building race cars without flush cuts, get out of the 70s and get a pair of flush cuts. The last thing is what would go in your pocket, right? So whatever wrench you're going to use to jack weight, and then stagger tape, or just a small, you know, if you're not rolling out the tires, you don't need this as a crew chief, but a small tape measure, measuring bump gap, measuring wheel offset, corner heights, a nice sturdy tape that you can get a good reading, and it's small enough to go in your pocket, so you're not constantly having to walk back to the mule or the pit cart for that. And then the last thing, a really bright LED flashlight should always be in your pocket. Inevitably, we race at night a lot of times and it gets dark, but just a couple little things in your pocket. You obviously, summertime, you're wearing shorts, you don't want to weigh yourself down, but a couple little things there. So those are the things that you should have readily available, save you time, do a better job, and make your night go smoother. Thank you for watching Monday Morning Quarterback. We are back next week with another great episode. As always, these are posted at 9 p.m. on our Facebook and YouTube page. We're almost to 3,000 subscribers on our YouTube page, so if you haven't subscribed, please do so, and we hope you have a great week.